Hey, all, and welcome to the first lesson of Unit 1. We're going to talk today about evaluating algebraic expressions. And I just want to go through even just this name. When we evaluate, we are going to be substituting. That might be something you're familiar with already. Algebraic means we are going to have numbers and letters, which we will talk about. And then expressions tells us that these are sort of math sentences that have no equal signs. Expressions do not have equal signs. So we may not solve an expression, we can evaluate it or we can simplify it, but we won't be getting to the end of this thing and having something like x equals 5. So just know that when we're doing something with an expression, there's no equal sign. So at the end, our answer will not have an equal sign. And so let's look at algebraic expressions first before we evaluate them. Here I have an algebraic expression, and it's got numbers in it. It's got some letters. It's got the letter X in there. We call those variables. And we've got some operations. So let's start with this. I'll do some color coding. These things in orange we call operations. Adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing, those are operations. These operations of addition and subtraction, they separate things that we call terms. And so each of these is a term. So 7x, that's a term. 3 is a term. 5x is a term. 8, 4x, and 1. These terms, the terms that don't have any letters, those are called constants. They're called constants because 3 is 3. 3 is 3. There's no changing 3 unless we combine it with something else. And then the other terms that are not constants because they contain a letter that we call a variable. And I want to take a moment to pause, and I want to encourage you to pause whenever you need to take a minute to write something down, or if you need to rewind and re-listen to something. I really encourage you not to be listening and writing at the same time. Please only focus your attention on one of those things. So write the things down and then listen, or you can listen and then copy down what I've written. Find whatever way is most comfortable for you. And if at any point you have a question or you don't understand something I'm saying, please do raise your hand and call me over, and I'd be glad to clarify or say it in another way. Here I'm using colors. If you don't have colors, that's okay. Just find a way so that you know which parts are terms, operations, variables, and constants. And I'll always post these notes on Canvas, and you'll be able to see them in color, so you can refer back to them if you want to make sure you remember which one was which. So now that we know sort of like the anatomy, the parts of an algebraic expression, we are going to start evaluating. And like I said before, evaluating is another way to say substituting. Another word for substituting would be replacing. So if I am absent, we will have a substitute. That person is replacing me for the day. Another way you might say it in math would be plugging in. I think most of us have heard that, plug in. So we want to evaluate this expression, and we want to use these values A equals 1 and B equals 3. And so we're going to evaluate our expression that I boxed in there in orange when A is 1 and B is 3. So if we changed what A is equal to and what B is equal to, we would evaluate it. It would be something different. But we're going to evaluate it under these conditions by substituting 1 for A and 3 for B, by replacing A with 1 and B with 3, or by plugging in 1 for A and 3 for B. Whichever language you like to use there, you use. I won't try to say all of them every time, but if you want to, you can feel free to express which one makes the most sense, and I'll try to use that in class. So I recommend first showing by writing down where you're plugging the things in, where you're replacing them, where you're substituting them. So I will plug my A's in red. And so anywhere I see an A, I'm going to replace it with a 1. So both of those A's were replaced with a 1. And then B is 3. I will replace my B with a 3. I want to encourage you that if you get a number over here that's negative, that when you use negative numbers, when you're plugging negative numbers in, use parentheses. So use parentheses for negatives. And this will help you avoid mistakes. So what I would encourage you to do is you can do this by hand, or if you want to, you can use Desmos. And what you would do is just copy that straight into Desmos. So what I want you to do right now is I want you to either by hand simplify that, or type that exactly the way you see it into Desmos, and then press play and check your answer against mine. I will do the same thing. So whether you did it by hand or you use Desmos, hopefully you got 6. If you didn't get 6, now's a good time to call me over. I just copied this directly into my calculator. You should always double check to make sure you copied it over correctly, because if you don't copy it correctly, you'll end up with the wrong answer. So make sure you copied it correctly, and we would get the answer is 6. And remember, I said we are not solving these things. So we're not saying that A equals 6 or B equals 6. Our answer is simply a number, the number 6. So let's try another one. Here we want to evaluate this expression. In case you don't remember it, or maybe have never seen it before, these symbols represent the absolute value. And what the absolute value does is it just takes any number and makes it positive. So I'm going to replace n with 2. Anywhere I see n, and I'll rewrite everything else. Anywhere I see n, I'm going to replace it with 2. And anywhere I see p, I'm going to replace it with -5. And I'm going to plug in parentheses and follow my own advice. So again, we can simplify this expression by hand if we want to. We can use the order of operations, or you can plug this into Desmos. So I want you to pause here, and I want you to simplify this, or I want you to copy it into Desmos. I would encourage copy this directly into Desmos. If you need help finding the absolute value function, it's right here. It's that 2 bars with the A, and then you can plug in -5 in there. So pause here, plug that into Desmos, and see what you get. I want you to always make sure, double or triple check that you've copied this exactly the way you had it written. If you were like me, you forgot a parenthesis somewhere and you didn't get the right answer. So I cleaned it up. If you copied it in exactly how you saw it and you got 9, Well done. If you got something a little different, that's okay. Just make sure that you call me over and ask me to help you find the mistake. So I'm going to do one more. Again, I'm just going to replace the variables with the numbers I'm given. So I'm going to put -5 in for x, and I'm going to put -2 in for z. So on top here is -2 and -5 for x, and I'll follow my own instructions, and I'll put parentheses. Again, you can put this straight into Desmos. I encourage you to do so. Pause now and do that, and then check your answer. So if you plug it in exactly how you see it, you should get 1. Again, no equal sign, no x equals at the end. When we're evaluating, we're just going to end up here with a number. So in each lesson, I'll have some problems like this where you try them, and then I'll go back through them. So I want you to pause here, and I want you to answer these 2 questions. There'll be some question boxes that pop up where you'll put your answer in. And then when you're done, I will go over the answers to these problems, and then you can move on to some practice. So go ahead and make sure that when the boxes pop up, you answer these 2. So hopefully you got C and B. If you didn't, that's okay. Now is the best time to raise your hand and ask for help so we can find any mistakes. And while you're doing these practice problems, it's good to be writing these down. In fact, you should be taking notes throughout this process so that you have them to help you through any practice. I think the tricky part for this one is when you put a negative number in for H, you should use parentheses so that when you put that in the calculator, it's doing -3 squared and not 3 squared with a negative at the front. So please do ask for help before you move on to the practice. If you got one or both of these wrong, it's totally okay. That's why I'm here. And if you feel confident, I want you to go to the practice. There are 8 practice problems. There are 4 here. And the boxes will pop up for you to answer. Choose the correct answer. And then I will slide to the next 4, and you can do the same. As ever, ask me for help if you get stuck and you need it. Take your time on these, and good luck.